Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. Pleased to be joined by the one, the only Sean Baligian of State Champs. Yes, we are here to talk about the quarterfinals. Usually, we last year we waited until after the to preview state finals, but because of a few games that happened last night, I feel like we need to get Mr. Baligian's perspective on some things. So, first off, how are you, Sean?
Great. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, Casey. I thank you for everything that you do for the hockey community. There's no doubt about that. And this was such a fun last few days, and we're not done yet. Obviously,
Oh,
Saturday, we're looking forward to a busy day on Saturday. And then, of course, we all get together at USA Hockey Arena.
like super excited to be up there. So, let's talk about some of the quarterfinal matchups. Let's start with the big elephant in the room. CC and Heartland gathered, and of course, you were there last night at Heartland. I know a lot of people have said, and I know you can go read what Bill Kahn had to say in the Livingston Daily, that matchup, with it should have been in the finals or all that stuff, but they put them in a regional. Um, it was a good game. CC ended up pulling it out. And what do you think about that? And also, do you see this type of matchup going forward in the future?
It's funny, Casey. I'm sure you've heard it. I've talked about this for a decade, and I kind of had a rant on state champs last week. I think it's a crying shame that these two teams had to face each other there. I think we all lose. That would have been an unbelievable game on Saturday. It would have been an unbelievable finish to the tournament. You see other sports seed. I don't know why we can't do it, especially when you've seen it work with such success. I know that people are infatuated with the idea of a Cinderella, but the best thing about a Cinderella is it just happens. It's organic, it's natural, it's real. And I think sometimes they try so hard to kind of force that. Casey, it's a shame. I feel sorry for all those Heartland kids. I feel sorry for Catholic Central that they had to play that game. We've seen it before. I've complained in the past about the UP teams. I think, so many times you've had a really good Hancock, a really good Calumet, a really good Houghton, whatever the case may be. And two of those teams might be out the first week of the year. I remember one year Plymouth had a really good team and they had to face Livonia Stevenson the very first game of the playoffs. And I think that's wrong. This might be the worst of all. And I feel badly that Trenton and Rice have to face this weekend.
Yeah.
They're clearly two of the best teams. Orchard Lake, St. Mary's, and East Grand Rapids. It is what it is. It's too bad. You have to play the games. But Casey, for my perspective, I think it would be in our best interest if we did everything we could to make sure that the best teams got to USA Hockey Arena. Not based on geography, not based on this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
We want to showcase our game. We want to show people how good it is in the state of Michigan. You've had a front row seat for it the last few years, and certainly one of the premier teams in all of high school hockey out in Brighton. I think it's a shame that it happened, but it was a great game. It was a memorable game. Heartland gave CC everything they had. A bounce here, a bounce there, and maybe we're talking about a different kind of finish. But Casey, my goodness gracious, you have to give Catholic Central credit. They just find a way. And I say this all the time. You can't put a price tag on depth. Goaltending and depth are two great, I guess the best way to put it is two great things that can help you have success at this level. And certainly they have the depth, no doubt about that.
And obviously Ryan Dye, who scored the goal. Obviously, most people know him for a lot of the other stuff outside of CC that he does. I know he was on TV recently talking about that. But and of course he scored the game winner, and obviously the machine that is Detroit Catholic Central just continues to roll along. We'll get into more on CC when we get to state finals week next week, if they are so willing to get there, of course.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some other highlights in D1, and then we'll move on to what D2 and D3 could look like. Brighton is back in. Howell, another regional title for them. Keith gets his first one. Yeah, and then of course you got Brighton. They had a tough battle with Northville in up at Novi Ice Arena, and then Salem. They're in as well. So the KLA is very widely represented as well.
Yeah, this was a big year for the KLA. It was interesting. Johnny Kidd asked me, who do you think the best conference is right now? And I said, without a doubt, it's the KLA. I think we saw what happened at the showcase, and you see all the teams moving forward. Now, we might have to revisit that next weekend. If
Yeah,
multiple MIHL teams end up winning a championship, we have to rethink that. But I don't think there's any debate right now, today, as we sit here on February 27th. I think the KLA can stick out their chest a little bit. I am not shocked at all that Northville gave Brighton everything they could handle. Casey, I saw Northville a lot this year, and that was a team that went like this as the year progressed. They really did. I think you're seeing the coaching from Ryan Ossenmacher and his staff. A lot of good pieces on that team. Make no mistake about it. But as we're talking about Northville going like this, we also have to include Brighton. No doubt about it. You and I were talking about this off the air, and I say this all the time on State Champs. I think Watkins is one of my favorite players in the state. I just love watching that kid play. Brighton is an absolute different team when he is in the lineup, and Brighton is, Brighton is Brighton. That's a quote we've used for years on State Champs. Brighton finds a way. And I think I don't want to say it to the point of cliche, because I think of a lot of the credit goes to, and I know that they'll shake their head and say no, but Coach Cavisto and Coach McDonald and that staff. I mean, year in, year out, it's no coincidence that they're peaking at the right time. And I think a lot of that credit goes to Coach Cavisto and his staff.
Yeah, and of course, this is a team that's had to definitely battle through a lot of adversity. I mean, there was a time where nothing was going right with this team, and they got on the streak, had a big week in Trenton, and then got some huge wins. Of course, you guys were on the call with the Brother Rice game, and they got a big win against De La Salle on a night where they be at 1 day prior to beating Catholic Central. So, and also that was another one of your predictions that came true this year too. Um,
Well, sometimes the blind squirrel finds the occasional acorn. You know how that works. But no, you know what? Hey, listen, Casey, the best part is teams getting right at the right time. And you mentioned how, I'll tell you what, when you got a goaltender playing as well as Lansky, they got a chance against anybody. I made the joke, the kid doesn't have a heart in his chest. And what I mean when I say that is, it's like he's a machine. It just, nothing phases him. He's just like this, and he's so uber focused, and he doesn't look under pressure at all. He just looks so cool, calm, and collected. You have a goaltender of that caliber, you have a chance to beat anybody.
Yeah. It kind of reminds, and he's not a goalie, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of Birchfield and all that stuff. So, yeah, also in D1, we can't forget what happened on the west side of the state, because how about that? Some big teams got some wins there too.
Yeah, I was really, I got to be honest with you, Casey. I was really surprised. I thought for sure that this was a situation where Forest Hill Central was going on. I like so much about their team. I really do. But by all accounts, you saw some great goaltending. And again, Casey, I say to you, that's the great equalizer, man. When you've got that goaltender that can go out there and stand on top of his head. Now, again, I didn't see the game. I'm getting secondhand information that this goaltender played so very well. When you have that, Casey, you are giving yourself an even money chance every single night. How many times have we seen it, Bud, where a team, goes out there and does that, and they might be less than all over the place, but they've got that goaltender at their expense. And boy, oh boy, that's a huge win, because honestly, from day one this year, I'm serious. You were just patting me on the back for getting some things right. I thought for sure Forest Hill Central was going back to USA. A good season. We say goodbye to some really good players, although they have some good returners coming back. But I thought for sure, Casey, that the Rangers were going to end up going back to USA. But hey, you know what? That's a huge win, and let's see how things play themselves out from there.
Yeah, I want to don't forget the other teams. Kazoo United, you just mentioned. Sparta getting the big win, 2 overtime win against Mona Shores. And then if you look, Clarkston's heading back. They got the big win over, I believe it was Genesee United, if I am not mistaken. And then it's Utica Eisenhower, and who got the big win over Romeo. And then you got and then I mentioned Salem for the third time this year. I think I'm going to call a Brighton Salem game.
Yeah, let me touch on Clarkson. I think Coach Breyer deserves a lot of props as
Absolutely.
well. He had so many losses last year, and I think a lot of people thought that Clarkston would take a step back. And boy, they found themselves during the course of the year, and they're a usual suspect. I like that Ike team. I had Ike winning that region. And they did. They're getting some darn good goaltending out of Holmes, their goaltender. So, and you're right about Sparta. Sparta's a team that started to make some noise last year. Caden Gleason was a guy that kind of appeared on the radar. And so, they're just a win away from punching a ticket to USA Hockey Arena. How exciting, man.
Yeah, it should be exciting. We'll recap with D1. We got Sparta and Keizu United, Howell and Clarkston. You got Utica Eisenhower and CC, and then you got Brighton and Salem. All right. Since it won't be until I'm not sure, probably the next hockey time we'll probably be previewing the state finals. Who you got for these? Who are the four teams that will represent D1?
You know what? I think I'm going to go with the hot team right now and the hot goaltender. I think I'm going to take Kalamazoo United.
Yeah,
I think you have to take Catholic Central. Honest to goodness, I think that Howell and Clarkston is going to be an epic, legendary matchup. A matchup that it might be better served at USA Hockey Arena, but I'm not going to rant on that anymore. But I'm going to take the Highlanders. I think Lansky gives them an edge. And you and I were just talking about this. This is a good Salem team. I mean, not just the top line. I think Eichner on the blue line's a pretty darn good player. But I have to like Brighton's chances, especially at Bigby. So I'm going to go with Brighton out of that region as well.
yeah. We all had to get you. After saying it so many times, everyone obviously referred to it. It will always be, of course, people called it by its former name, but I know its former name is still implemented in a lot of the leagues that are still there. But yeah, but they've done a pretty good job with that rink. But
Yeah.
yeah, let's go to Division Two. There was some definite. You know what? With Division Two, you never know what's going to happen. Of course, Rochester United, they beat St. Clair Shores Lakeview. Stevenson beat the Red Stallions. You got Brother Rice and Trenton colliding that will be matched up in the quarterfinals. Then you got Traverse City Central. You got Granville. There'll be a new state champion in D2. Marquette gets it done in overtime. And then you got Flint Powers Catholic beating Lakeland.
Yeah, I'm going to start. I love the TCC Granville matchup, and
Yeah,
my only disappointment in that, Casey, is one of those guys have to lose because I'll tell you what, I think everybody around the state would say this. When you talk about gentlemen around this state, I think Joel Brazil will come up on most lips, and Coach Givens will come up on most
yep,
lips. They're two great guys. I wish there was a way that they could both get to USA Hockey Arena, but the good news is one of them are going to get back to USA Hockey Arena. Give Doug Garrow and the Sentinels up in Marquette a lot of credit because they kind of went through a tough patch late in the season. But again, you play such a tough schedule. It gets you ready for the playoff. And Marquette earned this spot. Flint Powers is the favorite. I've said so for months. I'm going to continue to say it. I really am. I really like this RU team. It's a young team. I think Coach Penning has done a tremendous job with RU. But in the end, it might be a little bit too much Stevenson. Stevenson kind of found themselves. As you know, they went through a lull a little bit in February, and they've kind of found themselves. And I'm going to say the same thing as I did earlier. I think it's a shame that Rice and Trenton have to play at this point in time in the season. But here we are, two MIHL teams. I think they're two teams. Either one of them are capable of winning it all in Division Two, but obviously only one of them can come out.
yeah. And of course, we are still eligible for an MIHL sweep, which has happened many times at USA. And we're also in line for a Catholic school sweep, which has also happened many times at USA. So your picks for D2.
You know what? I'm going to stick with Powers. I think Powers is they're the team to beat. I've been saying it for a while. With all due respect to the KLA, with all due respect to MIHL, I really like Powers across the board. I think Marquette's going to give them a better battle than people expect. I think Stevenson, this will be Coach Mitchell's first trip back to USA since what, 2016, I believe. They were there 3 out of 4 years, and it's been a while, but I think Coach Mitchell and the Spartans get themselves back there. 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, Casey, as far as I'm concerned, with Brother Rice and Trenton. If you said Trenton, I would say, okay. And if you said Brother Rice, I would say, okay. I have to pick one of them though, and you know what, Casey, I'm gonna go with Brother Rice. I think Manly's he's playing so well right now, and that defense is so good. And I'm going to take the Bulldogs from Granville. I think Joel Brazil's going to be back at USA Hockey Arena this time as a member of Division Two.
Yeah, that Brother Rice Trenton game is probably
Oh,
the highlight of D2, and I got to see Brother Rice a few weeks ago, and it's going to be a good game. Now, let's go to Division 3. Now, obviously these two games happened on Tuesday. Jeffers and the Sioux will be in a quarterfinal together. You got Alpena and Petoskey is the host school. I think what's the is there a team name with that, or is it just Petoskey?
give me a second. Is it the Northmen?
I
Is it?
think it
You know
is.
what?
It
I
is the
can look.
Northmen, yes.
Yeah, I think it's the
I didn't
Northmen.
know
Yeah.
if they were I didn't know if they were a co-op or anything like that because they don't list the co-ops on here.
Mm-hmm.
East Grand Rapids and Orchard Lake St. Mary's, another big game. And then of course we got Riverview Gabriel Richard and Cranbrook getting together.
Yeah, just great matchups. Let me start with the latter. I'm a huge fan of Ricky DeSanta. I think he's done such a good job with that team for so very long. You can never count them out. I think a lot of people were really intrigued at that DCD game. Is Frank Novak, class act. He started to get his boys going, but in the end, it was RGR. But Casey, I've said it all along. It's almost like everybody kind of forgets about Cranbrook. And oh, by the way, hey guys, we're the defending state champion. They play so well. Coach LaFontaine has them playing the right way. They have a couple different goalies that can get the job done for you. I like Cranbrook in that one, but total props to the Pioneers for getting this far. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming.
Yeah, for sure. When you look at and then of course you got East Grand Rapids, Orchard Lake, St. Mary's. It is, a lot of people think obviously EGR has been so close. Yeah, I cannot think of any team that has more heartbreaking moments than that team did, especially with what that team had to go through this year, especially with coach. And then Orchard Lake St. Mary's, it'll be hard to believe, but it'll be a while. It's been a while since they've been to USA.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to say the same thing about this one that I said about Rice and Trenton in Division Two. If you said EGR, I'd say okay. And again, they've got a freshman right now who's playing out of his mind in Finch, and they're good up front. I think Stropkai on defense. He's a stud. I think a little too much OLSM in this game, though. But again, Casey, I wouldn't be shocked at all if EGR won this game. Coach Newton's such a darn good coach and a good guy, and they've been so great for hockey, and certainly they've become a usual suspect. But that should be a dandy. Make no mistake about that. That should be a dandy over in East Lansing.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be that is going to be a fun game, and of course it's at Munn, so that's going to be good.
Well, go green.
Let's talk about Jeffers and the Sioux a little bit. We've talked about Jeffers the last few weeks. It's came up, and now they are going to be in the quarterfinal round, taking down one of the usual suspects in Houghton. But what do we? Can you explain what Jeffers has done this year for people that may not know?
What a great story. Very early, Casey, in the year, I had a few people reach out to me and say, keep an eye on this team. This is a really, really good team. And they just kept winning. I mean, there's no way to say it other than that. And Britt Heinonen and so many good pieces on this team finding a way to get it done. And I think their coming out party was a few weeks ago when they knocked off Houghton. And a lot of people thought, well, they're not going to do it again. And then they did it again. I mean, it's just a great story. Make no mistake about it. And I think conversely, the Sioux is as well. That was a pretty good team last year that came just short. And I've seen them this year a few times. The first time I saw them, they struggled a little bit. And I think they would be the first ones to admit it. And then the next couple times I saw them, Casey, honest to God, I saw them against Cranbrook and Northville. And I was like, look out for this team. This is a team that's growing up in front of our very eyes. They're a big team. They're going to be a tough out. So you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. They were my pick all along. I thought that this would be the matchup. I thought that Jeffers and Sioux would be the matchup. And I know that everybody, is seemingly going for Jeffers. I think Sioux's going to find a way to do it. I do. I just think there's a little bit too much size there. Should be a dandy. I'm going to say the same thing. I won't be surprised at all if you saw a situation where Jeffers won that game and they continue, the magical run down to USA Hockey Arena. But as a few people in the UP told me, they're affectionately called the Adams family up there because it's basically a bunch of areas around Adams Township that feed into Jeffers, and just a great story. It really is just a great story.
Absolutely. Then you got Petoskey and Alpena. Obviously, Alpena's had some moments this year, and then you look at the Northmen, taking down a team that did go to the state finals last year in Bay Reps.
Yeah, you know what? Give all the credit in the world to Alpena. I like that team. I think there are a couple guys up front in Hamp and Winterstein that are just studs. And Petoskey's a team. I always say this, Casey. I know I said it to you. I haven't seen them, but I've heard enough about them. And you look at some of the numbers. Chase Lefebvre has had a really good year.
Yeah.
Linus Catterat is another player that's had a really good year. I know that Alpena is the favorite in this one, but let's see what the Northmen could do in this one, Casey. I'm a little intrigued at that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So, your picks for D3?
You know what? I'm gonna stick with what I said at the beginning of the tournament. I like Cranbrook to come out of there. I like OLSM. Like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if EGR won that game, but I'm gonna go with Coach Clanow and the Eaglets. I went with Alpena out of that region, and I went with Sault Ste. Marie out of that region. So we'll see how it plays itself out. But yeah, that's the way I look at it right now.
What's the top looking like? Who goes from and then of course you got the Sioux, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I got the Sioux. That's who I took from the beginning. I said Sioux over Jeffers, so I guess I was right in both those teams getting there. Now let's see if Sioux can take the Cinderella slipper off, because I mean Jeffers is a great story. I think a lot of people around the state kind of pulling for the Jets right now.
And then of course you got Alpena as well. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of teams in D3 that haven't been. Obviously, Cranbrook obviously was the defending state champion, but we'll see what happens with this one.
Yeah, that's what is fun about it, And Casey, I love getting everybody together at USA Hockey Arena. It starts late Thursday afternoon, and you have the D2 games on Thursday, and then obviously Division III Friday morning, and then it seems like more people come in for Division I. Those Division I games are just so good. That late game the last few years, and as a Brighton fan, I mean, just two memorable games: the win against Heartland and then the win against Clarkston. So might it be a Livingston County matchup? Might it be Howell and Brighton? Boy, that would be fun. I know Clarkston has something to say about that. Salem has something to say about that, but it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I may serve as the voice of Brighton hockey, but anytime I come on here, I am impartial as always. So, yeah, it should be fun. Everybody knows it's this is a fun part of the tournament, but it's definitely going to be fun when we get to USA. But Mr. Sean Baligian, thank you so much for previewing the quarterfinals, and looking forward to all the games this weekend, and then of course you'll be back next week to preview the state finals.
Look forward to it, buddy. I'll see you on Saturday at Brighton. Hopefully see you at USA Hockey Arena as well.
Absolutely.